You ready to schmooze?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we're 10 days into the war with Ukraine. 1.5 million refugees have fled Ukraine. Still 42.5 million Ukrainians in Ukraine in the middle of a war zone. UN High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi said on Sunday that this is the largest and fastest growing mass refugee exodus in Europe since World War II. The majority of those fleeing have entered Poland, while others have sought safety in Hungary, Moldova, Slovakia, Romania. In recent days, Grandi has led calls for support and hailed locals and officials in other countries for welcoming, in recent days, thousands experiencing separation, anguish, and loss. Grandi said on Sunday that he was not especially concerned about political backlash to refugees of the kind seen with Syria and other war-torn areas. He said this crisis carries an important message that anybody can become a refugee very suddenly, and that is certain. Under an emergency plan, Ukrainian refugees have a right to live and work in the European Union for up to 3 years. This proposal is based on a 2001 law drawn up in the aftermath of the Balkan Wars, which has never been used. That was, Croatia, Montenegro, and Albania. By waiving the requirement to claim asylum for Ukrainian nationals and permanent residents, the European Union hopes to avoid overwhelming the European Union asylum system. Meanwhile, authorities in Brussels called on border guards on both sides of the Ukraine-EU frontier to ensure everybody, not just Ukrainians, but everybody of every race, nationality, gets through the border if they want. A senior EU official said absolutely everyone, I'm quoting, everyone regardless of nationality, of race, of religion, will be allowed across the border into the European Union. If they are fleeing war from Ukraine, there will be a safe haven for everybody. Now, there's been news recently by many news outlets that people without Ukrainian citizenship, especially people with darker skin, have had problems getting out of the country. Now, what European Union is saying is that as of now, whatever problems they had in the past, they have fixed it. It's at least what they're saying. And everybody will be allowed out, no matter race, religion, nationality. If you don't have a Ukrainian passport, however, they will look to repatriate you back to the country that you originally came from. So only the Ukrainians will be allowed to stay in Europe. So if you're a Nigerian student, Indian student, eventually you'll have to be repatriated back to India or Nigeria. That's what they're saying in the European Union. The Biden administration announced on Thursday that they're giving temporary protected status to Ukrainians here in the United States. They approximate about 34,000 Ukrainians are here out of status, have no country to return to. 4,000 of them are in removal. All of them will get temporary protected status. That doesn't mean that if you're Ukrainian and arrive later, you get temporary protected status. You only get temporary protected status if you're here at this very present moment. So it is not for refugees. What the temporary protected status is just for people who are already in the United States who can't leave because they got nowhere to go. In the meantime, President Joe Biden has taken immediate steps to ensure that Ukrainians and others fleeing the war are prioritized for resettlement. The number of European refugees the United States can accept is capped at 10,000. 335 of those slots have already been filled, mostly by Ukrainians. So if you are a Ukrainian and want to come to the United States, I would assume that in the next few weeks, the cap will already have been reached. So if you're in Europe, you'll end up staying in Europe. They've already accepted 335. I don't know how many applications are already in. And Moldova is worried about a Russian invasion. And the reason they're worried, Moldova straddles Ukraine and Romania. Has a lot of Russian-speaking citizens in Moldova. It is not part of the European Union. It is not part of NATO. And every country that's not part of the European Union and part of NATO is worried now that, especially if they have Russian-speaking citizens in that country, that Russia will invade it and try to make it part of a greater Russia. So now, as of today, Moldova has made an application to join the European Union. That does not prevent Russia from invading, only being a member of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, would require that all 27 European countries plus US, Canada, come to the defense of those particular countries. And there was a ceasefire, and Putin broke the ceasefire. There's a lot of humanitarian issues, especially in the southern city of Mariupol, where Ukrainian officials are saying that within the next short period of time, people are going to run out of food, run out of water. The Russian army has surrounded the city, and they were going to allow people to get out of the city, and that has collapsed. So we're looking at a huge humanitarian issue in the city of Mariupol. It is right on the Black Sea. I think the idea from the Russian military is to take over all the cities on the Black Sea and prevent any sort of military equipment or food or any supplies coming into the Ukraine. Problem is they haven't gotten that far. They've gotten a lot more stiff resistance from the Ukrainian army than anybody anticipated. Ukraine has slammed Moscow. A lot going on in Ukraine today.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, Ukraine slammed Moscow, offer to evacuate civilians to Russia. So Russia said that they would accept the refugees, but only if they go to Russia. So Russia goes and invades Ukraine, causes this humanitarian crisis, causes a major war, and then wanted the television news to say, look how wonderful Russia is. They're accepting all of these refugees. And that was obviously turned down by the Ukrainians. The other thing that President Zelensky is trying to do is some of the old Soviet countries, Poland and Slovakia, they have the MiG. They're asking for a no-fly zone, of which NATO won't get involved in because they don't want to start World War III.
Right.
But now they're asking Poland, especially Poland, Slovakia, and Romania, whose Air Force still flies MiG fighters, because Poland, Romania, and Slovakia were part of the old Soviet Union. The MiG fighters are the Russian jets, not the F-16s that you see, Tom Cruise flying in Top Gun.
Right.
So the idea is to ship the Polish, Romanian, and Slovakian jets to the Ukrainians that they can fly them and have a no-fly zone, because the Ukrainian pilots don't know how to fly F-16s anyway. They're only trained to fly the MiGs. The issue is Poland says, well, if I give them our planes, then what are we going to have? We got to protect ourselves too.
Right.
So now it's up to the United States to resupply Poland with F-16s.
Oh my gosh.
And then teach their pilots how to fly them. But somebody needs to patrol the skies over Ukraine, where the war's going to be over sooner rather than later.
Right.
And it's going to be on the Russian side. So Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Joe Manchin, we've heard Senator Joe Manchin's name before, both said they also are going to support a ban on imports of Russian oil. So if you don't like $4 a gallon gas, you're not going to like $6 a gallon gas. That is for sure.
Yeah.
So the American people have to appreciate what the price of, if you call what we have freedom, is freedom, or price of democracy, or the price of our lifestyle. Because people would argue, I don't know if we're free or not, right?
Right.
I mean, but that's an argument for another day.
Right.
But how about the price of our lifestyle?
Yeah.
Okay, because that is the price you're going to pay. You know, what's interesting about this war is that, you know, there's new things that are always, you know, I find it interesting. I'll give you my 2 cents on. There's new things that are always discovered in war that are, you know, new things that are always made and discovered in war that nobody ever thought before the war would start. And there's 3 things that I've noticed that Putin did not calculate.
Okay.
One is the fact that there would be such severe economic sanctions, and the sanctions would be digging in very, very deep into the regular Russian population to the point now where, you know, MasterCard, Visa, American Express, there's no credit cards anymore in Russia.
It. Yeah.
They blocked them. We're now at the point where we're not going to buy their oil anymore.
Right.
We're now at the point where we have blocked all of their banking outside of Russia. Basically, that nobody thought that this collective sanctions is literally like a nuclear bomb went off in Russia.
And you
their stock market hasn't opened yet since they started the war, because their stock market opened, all of their stocks would be zero.
So you don't think that he thought about this?
I don't think he realized to the extent.
I mean, there's got to be some kind of consequence.
Because he invaded Crimea in 2014, and the world said, we're going to give you sanctions. And you know what? Putin said? We've lived through your sanctions before. We'll live through them again. So he didn't
Real
expect.
cocky with it.
He did not expect to the level and extent. The scary part is that if you bankrupt Russia so much, you bankrupt them to the point where they don't have food, they don't have money. You know, a caged animal, or an animal that's backed into the corner with nowhere to go, could lash out.
That's what I was saying. I was afraid that he was going to do it.
They could lash out with a nuclear weapon. Who knows?
Remember, that's what
It's very scary. Apple. Think about Russia spans 11 time zones. Boeing and Airbus, 3/4 of their airplanes that fly in Russia, 75% of every plane in Russia is either made by Boeing or made by Airbus. Boeing, the U.S. airplane company, Airbus, the European airplane company. They refuse to service their planes. They refuse to give parts to their planes. Those planes will not be able to take off in another 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
How in the world people living in a country that spans 11 time zones will get from one part to the other? You can't. The entire Russian aviation industry is going to collapse. Look at TikTok is no longer in Russia because Putin said, by the way, if I was in Russia right now, the next sentence I'm going to say would put me in jail for 15 years.
Wow. What?
You can't say Russia started a war with the Ukraine.
Wow.
15 years in jail.
Are you serious?
Russia started a war with Ukraine. Luckily, I'm in New York.
Right.
Okay.
And they can't come for you.
They can't come for me. Now, I don't know if I can ever go back to Russia anymore after that.
I don't know if you want to.
I don't know. But that's 15 years in jail. So the people on TikTok say, we don't want to be on a platform where somebody says that. Then they're going to say the executives knew. So they shut down. So TikTok is no longer, you can't do a live video on TikTok. You can't post a TikTok video from Russia. You can only watch.
Wow.
Facebook closed down. Okay. Think about Apple. You can't buy an Apple product in Russia anymore. The combined economic, to the point where we talked about last week, where they banned cats. They banned the Paralympians.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing. You know, when you think about the 3 things, the economic,
that's crazy,
nuclear bomb that the European community and America and Canada, Japan and Australia put against Russia. And by the way, Russia, although a superpower, it's not the largest economy in the world. It has an economy equivalent to Italy. All right. So, you know, it's not like they're the biggest economy in the world. The second thing, which I find very interesting about, you never thought before, is that this collective like the whole world canceled
Russia. Yeah.
You know, like we're like, oh, let's
Cancel
cancel
culture.
You know, cancel culture.
Yeah.
Putin did not get cancel culture.
Yeah, he didn't know about
because
that.
he's been in a bunker because of COVID for the last 2 years. He didn't see all the people who got canceled.
Right.
But you know who got canceled now? Putin
Yeah.
and the entire country of Russia
Yeah.
has been canceled. They canceled Russian cats. They canceled the Paralympics. They have, you know, this collective, and you can't stop it. You can't make peace.
No.
You can't make peace with cancel culture. Who is a Putin going to sit down at the peace table with about cancel culture? You can Anonymous, you know, these hackers, they're going after Putin now. How do you stop that?
You don't.
You can't. Okay? How do you stop this 16-year-old kid in Florida who's, you know what I'm talking about, who's listing all the yachts all over the place?
Yeah.
You can't. So Putin did not get cancel culture. He never thought in a million years Russia was going to be canceled. You can't come back from that.
You can't come back from that.
Economic, besides the you know, the sanctions that the European Union and the United States and Australia and Japan are giving to Russia, you have this cancel culture, which adds a whole other layer of economic pain. Never thought in a million years. And the last thing, you know, so things get invented during a war that you never thought would ever happen. And the last thing that I see, at least from my opinion, of what's happened in the last 10 days that Putin never thought would happen, is that outside of China, Iran, and Syria and Belarus, the entire world has united around the idea that you cannot invade another country because you want more land.
Right.
You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
We are not in the 18th or 17th century.
Yeah.
We are in 2022. And outside of China, Belarus, Iran, and Syria, by the way, India is...
What are they, on the fence?
They're on the fence.
Oh, wow.
UAE is on the fence. Some countries are on the fence because they got to deal with Russia in their neck of the woods. But for the most part, the entire world has united around the fact that you can't do this.
Right.
And NATO, which a year ago, when President Pumpkin was the president, we didn't even know if NATO was going to exist anymore. NATO is stronger now than ever. We didn't know if the United States and the European Union would ever be friends again. Our relationships are stronger now than ever, and Putin never would have thought of that in a million years.
Right.
So that's what I see from all of this. The game changer is China.
Yeah.
You know, if China says to Putin one day, and I don't know when this is going to be.
Do you think it would happen?
Well, China's in a precarious situation, okay? They are adversaries against the United States, okay? So they don't want to see the United States or European Union win anything, okay? They made a deal. China made a deal with the people of China, the Chinese Communist government. There's no real deal, but this is the deal. You get us, we stay in power, we are a dictatorship, and we're going to stay in power and be a dictatorship because this is the best way to run a government and make everybody's lives economically better. So that's the deal they made in China. Okay, we're going to take everyone out of poverty, and the greatest way to take everyone out of poverty, and you see it now, China's a lot of rich Chinese all over the world, a lot of middle-class Chinese. We're going to take you all out of poverty, and we're going to be an economic powerhouse. We are going to be the #1 economic power in the world.
I mean, it's a pretty good deal.
Right. It's a pretty good deal if you want to live, but in return, you get a dictatorship, no free press, you can't protest, you don't have your rights.
Wow.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
And people in China They say, you know what? I was walking around in flip-flops and rice paddies, and now I'm living in a multi-million-dollar condominium. Yeah. They're like, we'll take that deal.
Right.
Now China.
So that's why they're behind Russia.
Well, they're behind Russia because they're in competition with the United States.
With the United States, yeah.
But you know what would happen, and this is way down the line, is if all these economic sanctions kick in, guess what's going to happen to China?
What?
Their economy is going to suffer too.
They're going to get the cancel culture as
well?
I
don't know if they're going to get cancel culture, but their economy is going to suffer. Our economy is going to suffer. They're not in the business of reducing their gross national product. They want to increase their gross national product. They want to beat the United States and the European Union economically and become the most powerful country in the world economically, which is different than what Putin wants to do. He wants to become the most powerful country in the world because he's got a bomb.
Right.
So this doesn't help the cause for China. So if their economy gets battered enough, they may say to Putin, hey, pull out, let's make a deal and end these sanctions. And then who does Putin have on his side? Nobody at that point.
Right.
The only reason that Putin can continue is because he's got China on his side.
Yeah, for sure.
China switches sides.
That's it.
That's it.
Oof.
So that's my take on everything. We'll talk more about Ukraine tomorrow. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris on Sunday visited the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. You know what happened there?
Yeah.
What happened there?
That was like the bridge. Is it the bus?
That was the Bloody Sunday Bridge. It was the 57th anniversary, where state troopers severely beat and tear gassed peaceful voting rights demonstrators, including young activists and the late John Lewis, who later became a longtime Georgia congressman, the nation's first female vice president, as well as the first African American and Indian American in the role, said a record number of people cast their ballots in the 2020 elections. It was a triumph of democracy in many ways, but not everyone saw it that way. Some saw it as a threat. The vice president criticized Republican lawmakers for voting to block passage of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. It is the 57th anniversary today.
It's not even that long ago.
March 7th, 1965.
Wow.
Not long ago.
No, not at all.
No. And we don't have time for COVID. Let's get to Fuzzy Monday.
All right.
All right. We have some fuzzy news. Maybe. Maybe we have fuzzy news. Yo, you're going to be glad to hear that Hank the Tank, the 500-pound bear, has been exonerated because of DNA evidence.
Oh.
Yes. Hank the Tank, who was accused, a 500-pound bear, was accused of breaking into various homes in California and stealing all the food and ransacking the house. So finally, the authorities in California caught Hank the Tank. They were going to kill him.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't do they don't throw Hank the Tank in jail. They just give him the electric chair.
Sheesh.
They would just kill him. But what happened was, before they were going to euthanize him,
look at him.
Before Hank the Tank he's 500 pounds.
Sheesh.
Before he was going to be euthanized, they decided to run a forensic DNA analysis to see if Hank the Tank was the bear who ransacked the most recent house in California. And you know what they found out?
It wasn't him.
It wasn't him.
So who was it?
It was a female bear. Hank's a man.
Wow.
So then the authorities said, we're going to go to 28 other homes and see if Hank the Tank was the culprit on any of the other 28 homes.
And not one?
Not one. Look on his wanted poster. Hank is innocent.
Innocent.
Dang. He was framed, Hank.
Well, thank God.
Hank the Tank was framed.
Thank God they went and did the research.
They did DNA on 28 homes. They said Hank the Tank never was in any of these houses.
Who is this female bear?
We don't know. So Hank the Tank is still alive and well.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So now No, he's not being euthanized. He's even
Good.
being relocated, Hank the Tank.
Oh, well, why did they? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't they have done that in
And
the
they're
first place?
They're gonna relocate him. They're gonna put a little tag on him and put him back into the wild.
Well, why wouldn't they have done that in the first place? Why are you gonna kill him?
Because they thought maybe Hank the Tank would come back.
If
He
they
got
take
away
him
with
far
it.
away.
He got away with 28 houses. Maybe he'll come back for 29.
They could have done the same thing if he was the guilty.
Well, thank
person.
God, Hank the
Right.
Tank.
I know.
I'm
Thank
glad
God.
they did the DNA.
He was just chilling. Look at that.
He's like, I didn't do nothing.
Right.
Yeah, and they were like,
Probably
yeah.
his wife.
They were like, yeah, right. I've heard that before.
Right. Look, even made a wanted poster
Yeah.
on him.
You're like, man, I didn't do nothing.
Poor
Yeah, I
Hank
heard
the
that.
Tank.
Right. But you know, at least they did the DNA.
Yeah. 28 houses.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you heard of the census report for people. There is now a census of squirrels in New York City, Jonathan. People counting squirrels. People want to know how many squirrels are there in New York City. So in early March 2020, 72 New Yorkers who really wanted to count every squirrel in New York City, they went around counting. And what they found was they spotted a total of 433 squirrels. I'm sure there's more.
Right.
I'm sure there's more. But they said that Tompkins Square Park in the East Village has the most squirrels, followed by Sternberg and Cooper Parks in Brooklyn, as well as Thomas Paine and Sarah D. Roosevelt Parks in Manhattan. Gray squirrels are the most common, followed by the cinnamon-colored squirrel. The most extinct squirrel, at least in New York City, the black squirrel.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those.
I have not seen any black squirrels.
Right,
I don't know if
I
I can tell the difference between gray and cinnamon. Is there much of a difference between the colors? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the gray one, look, like that's the gray one. It kind of, you would think it's cinnamon. I thought that was like just regular brown. I never knew that was considered the gray squirrel.
Well, apparently they were doing this because nobody's ever done this before.
Obviously.
And very little is known about the city's squirrel. So scientists say that the furry mammals can offer clues to how other animals might adapt to climate change.
But how do they count them? Like, what?
Now, the new release is accompanied by a toll-free number, 1833 New York City Squirrel, NYC Squirrel, where the public can now listen to the experiences and information collected by the volunteers. So if you want to know all about the New York City Squirrel, dial 1-800-LAW-LINK. No, you dial 1833 NYC Squirrel.
Jessica Leamy said, what the F? They need a hobby that doesn't include counting squirrels. I agree. I agree. That is kind of...
You gotta love the squirrel. You gotta love the squirrel. Meanwhile, a Scottish photographer has raised tens of thousands of dollars for hungry animals with images of dogs catching cubes of cheese in their mouth.
I love this.
Yes. Carolyn Cowan, 56, who works with her husband Alice Deer on the project, says, it's fast and furious and total bedlam at times, but it's so funny. Sometimes I am crying with laughter. Deer cuts up to 22 pounds worth of cheese into cubes. He has different sizes for different dogs. He throws the cheese to the dogs, and I start clicking away as the dogs catch the cheese in the air.
They're hilarious. Look at them.
Yes.
They're so good.
The photographer said some dogs will just look at you when you throw the cheese at them, and it just falls in front of them. But sometimes some dogs really catch it. Depends on the dog.
Yeah, you can see some of them.
Yeah. I tried to, when I had Lucky and T-Bone, I tried to throw food at them. It would just hit them in the face and look down. And then I'll be like, no, it's there, it's there. They couldn't even find where it was.
Oh yeah, that one caught it.
Yeah. My dog, Hank the Tank would have killed my dogs in the wild.
Right.
They would never have survived in the wild.
Oh, look at those.
Yeah, cute.
Yeah, I like them.
So far, she's raising money. She's raised at least $20,000 for local animal food banks and other dog charities from these adorable, cheesy catch-a-thons. Carolyn says she held her first event in November 2018. At the first one, there was about 10 dogs that came. When COVID hit, we had to stop the event, but a few weeks ago, I was watching the news. I saw a woman talking about having to use food banks after losing her job. So they're doing it all to raise money.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. And we have time for one more. Left or right, Yo-Yo?
Left.
All right. Video has captured the moment a zookeeper introduced her new baby to the gorillas, and they've collectively amassed over 30 million viral views on TikTok. Kate, who didn't disclose her last name, captioned the flagship clip, which she reportedly shot at her undisclosed zoo 10 weeks into her maternity leave. The sweetest boy meeting my sweet baby for the first time. The footage shows the zookeeper holding up her baby, whose name and age have not been revealed, up to the enclosure of a male gorilla who's sitting with his back to the window. He eventually turns around and stares at the baby. And he looked and he says, You think he's saying lunch, or he loves the baby?
No. I think he loves the baby.
He loves the baby?
Yeah, I've seen videos of gorillas. Like, I remember when the kid had fell into the gorillas.
Right, and they took care of him.
Yeah, and took care of him. Holding it.
You're right, because the next sentence here on my card says gorillas have exhibited compassion for
babies. Yeah,
yes.
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, in the most famous incident at Chicago's Brookfield Zoo in 1996, I think this is what you're referring to.
It might be that.
An 8-year-old female named Binti Joua saved the life of a 3-year-old boy who fell into her enclosure.
Yes.
She picked up the unconscious toddler and sat him down next to the exit where the paramedics were able to extract him. And in this past summer, a Boston zoogoer proved that the maternal bond transcends species after she and a mother gorilla held up their babies for each other to see.
Oh, that's cute.
So babies and gorillas were okay.
Yeah.
They go together.
I don't know if you're an adult.
I don't know if I would take, if I had another baby, if I would
allow the gorilla.
That.
No, obviously.
You know, on TikTok, somebody asked, do you have a baby?
Right.
I don't have a baby. No baby.
Maybe they were asking if you want a baby.
What? Maybe they were asking if I want. I don't know. I didn't. Maybe that's what they were asking. Right. I thought they were saying, "Do I have a baby?"
I
gotta go back and look at that question now.
Right.
Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.